Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to worship at the Platte City United Methodist Church. We're glad you're here. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Doris Peterson.
Try it again. Say good morning.
I guess I get to say good morning again.
No.
Not yet?
No. Let John do it. Okay, try it now.
Now they tell me to try it again. Here I am. Welcome to worship at the Platte City United Methodist Church. We're glad you're here. For anyone that doesn't know, I'm Doris Peterson. Pastor Robert and his family are on vacation, and we will be hearing from Kay Johnson later. For those of you here today, please sign in using the attendance books located along the center aisle. If you're joining online, hello, and please leave comments so we know you're here. If you're a guest with us today, thank you for joining us, and we invite you to stop by the Connect Center in the fellowship hall, where we have a gift for you as a way to say thank you for coming to worship with us. Now, before we move on into our worship service, I invite you to take a look at your bulletin for announcements. We are celebrating Christmas in July and collecting boxes for Operation Christmas Child. Information about the boxes is in the bulletin and at the Connect Center. You'll also find boxes there. When you return your filled box, you can place them at the altar rails up front. We will be collecting boxes until August 13th. And just one more thing. Larry Duke still needs transportation to an appointment on July 28th. The sign-up sheet is at the Connect Center, or call the office on Monday. Now, let's prepare for worship as we hear the prelude.
Please stand with me for the call of worship. Make a joyful noise to God, all the earth.
Sing the glory of God's name.
Give to God glorious praise.
Say to God, how awesome are your deeds.
All the earth worships you. They sing praises to you, sing praises to your name.
Our opening hymn is number 62, All Creatures of Our God and King.
We'll do all 5 verses there.
invite you now to greet one another, Christian love.
Kids, we are so glad that you are with us today for worship. We want you to know that God loves you, and we as a church love you too. So at this time, if you would like, we invite our kids to go to the back where we have some great Safe Gathering certified adults who will take you to Children's Church. Bye, guys.
I can fly around like a superhero, but no, I'm strong 'cause God loves me.
I'd invite our ushers to come forward as we continue to worship God through the giving of our offerings.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. I'll start off with when Pastor Robert asked me to do this, I originally said no. But as you know, he said pray on it, and so I did, and God said you need to do this. So as much as I love to talk, you all know me, I love to talk a lot, but I'm not a big fan of talking in front of groups. So forgive me if I pace, or if my voice shakes, or I forget where I am, or I cry, or I ramble on for a long time. Any of those things could happen. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and my family went to church on holidays, and I went to Sunday school, and I was baptized and confirmed in the Lutheran Church. At home, I remember my mom opening our Bible to put graduation announcements and funeral announcements and things like that in it, but other than that, the Bible didn't really get opened. The only time the mention of God was what happened was when my dad would usually take his name in vain when he was working on a project, which happened a lot. But we were a Christian family, but yes, I never learned how to worship, how to pray, and so through high school and through most of college, that was pretty much true. So in college, I met Eugene, and he was a Catholic, and we started going to church together, the Catholic church together. And when we got married, I continued to go to the Catholic church with him. And we decided to raise the kids Catholic. I knew that if we raised them Protestant and they decided they wanted to be Catholic, they would have to go through that 12-step program to get the Protestant out of them in order to be able to be Catholic. So I agreed to raise them Catholic. And so for a long time, 20 years or so, I went to the Catholic church pretty much every week to support him and to support the kids. But I never felt comfortable there. I could never take communion. I didn't want to become Catholic, and I didn't feel like I really had that great a church family, even though we had a lot of friends in the Catholic church. So in 2012, Eugene and I were kind of struggling. We were going through some things, and about the same time the Catholic church was struggling. There were a lot of things going on with priests and kids, and so I finally said to him, I'm not going to the Catholic church anymore. I refuse. So for quite a while in 2012, I didn't go to church at all. Well, at about the same time, we met up with a guy that Eugene had been in the Army with in North Carolina, and he talked to us about Eugene getting back into the Army Reserves. And those of you who know Eugene know that he was a soldier. He is a soldier. And so after a lot of discussion, we finally decided that it would be the best thing for him to get back in. The kids were pretty grown, and he really missed being a soldier, and there were monetary benefits, insurance and things. And so he got back into, he re-enlisted. It was shortly after that they told him he was going to be deployed to Afghanistan during the war. So I had quit going to church, and immediately God sending my husband to a war zone. So I thought for sure that God was angry with me, that God was punishing me. So I decided, okay, it's time to go to church. So having been raised Lutheran, I went across the street to the Lutheran church one Sunday and by myself, and I walked in, and people looked at me, but no one greeted me. And I sat down and listened to kind of a fire and brimstone sermon and listened to some really dark organ music. And by the time I left, I realized this is why I never enjoyed going to church when I was a Lutheran. I left there feeling very gloomy and doomy. And so the next week, I came here. And I walked in the doors, and a number of people greeted me, including Anna Nutt. And she said, "Kay, come sit by me and be my pew buddy." And so we sat right back there, and her and I continued to be pew buddies until the pandemic happened and church quit, and she ended up going somewhere else. But when we sat there that day, Pastor Jeff was here at that point. And he stood right here, and the first words out of his mouth were, "God is not angry with you. Our God does not hold grudges. Our God does not punish you. Our God is a loving God, and he loves you." And I felt like he was speaking directly to me. And I knew at that very moment that this is where I belonged. And so I continued to come to church here. I joined and became fairly active. I helped Doris and Anna back in the kitchen. And truthfully, when this whole sermon is about where I've seen God, I saw God in this church. I very much saw God in this church, in all of you. So 2013 comes around, and it was a hard year, what I thought would be the hardest year of my life. It was, Eugene was in a war zone, and even though he assured me that he was safe, I knew he wasn't, and I had nightmares about the black car coming up my driveway, and the kids were so busy with everything, with band. And actually, it's funny because the prelude was actually a solo that my daughter Kendall did on the clarinet. And so I was like, okay, God, thank you. You're giving me some more signs I'm supposed to do this. But I was running them to band things and art things and sports, and the whole time I was taking care of my clients at my clinic and Eugene's clients and his mobile practice. And my sister and I were fighting, and we become estranged. it was really hard. And during all of that, in April, my dad got diagnosed with a heart-based tumor and was given 30 days to live, and he passed away Memorial Day. So it was a really, really hard year for me. And through all of it, I would come to church here every Sunday and see all of you. And you were here for me, and you, see, I told you I might cry. You got me through it. That's the only way I can say it. I would come here and I would feel the love of God, and I just knew that God was looking out for me. Everyone prayed for Eugene, and I made it through my dad's funeral. I got Haley graduated from high school and off to college, and I got through the year. And then at the end of the year, I don't know how many of you remember, but when he came back from Afghanistan, the day I picked him up, we had a big get-together out in the parking lot, and a huge group of people came and welcomed him back. And it meant so much to him. He was so amazed that so many people cared about him. And he started coming to church with me after that. So that was what I thought would be the worst year of my life. Then he took a deployment to Africa in 2019. And he came back. It didn't go very well. And I told you I'd cry. And I think most of you know that he left in June of 21 and filed for divorce. And actually last week was the 1-year anniversary of our divorce. And these last few years have been really hard. But all of you, once again, were here for me. And we were blessed to have Pastor Robert. And he always seemed to know right when I was at the worst point, and he would text me and say, "Okay, I just wanted you to know that I'm praying for you." And I started, I went to Bible studies with Mike and Cheryl McGinnis and a bunch of you, and we did the Bible study of John, and I could just feel the love of God. And I would see all the things, you know, the election dinner and how everyone would come together and help, and the kids programs, the youth programs, our church in Zimbabwe, Hillcrest, the Day of Hope, you know, all the things that everyone constantly were giving of themselves for God. And, you know, our 5 o'clock service, we're a small and mighty group, but every Sunday when I see Rosie come through the doors, and people are always jumping to help her get in here so she can worship God. And it's things like that I see. Where I see God is right here in this church. All the prayers that we lifted up for Delinda to help her get through her cancer. It's this place. And I tell people all the time about the wonderful church that I have and the wonderful people in it. Because there are a lot of people out there, I think, that say that they are Christians, but they don't actually live their life like Christians. But I feel like this church is really full of good Christian people that are always helping everyone else. And so this is where I see the love of God, here. And I've spent a lot of hours or a lot of time at that altar praying for things in my life, and my prayers have been answered so many times, just from people here. So I guess one of the things I want to do is thank all of you, because, yeah, you've got me through the really hard times in my life. One of the things that's happened, I've said that the divorce has been really hard, but some really good things have come from it. I have spent lots of times in my life trying to read the Bible. And every time I would start to read the Bible, I would read about slavery and people being stoned and people being killed. And, you know, the Old Testament's pretty darn dark. And I just couldn't read it, and I really felt like it was just a stupid book that was written by a bunch of men that back 2,000 years ago that really was not from God. So when Eugene left in June, and July 17th, I sat down and I started reading, actually a study Bible that I had purchased for a Bible study that Anna Nutt had done when she came back from Jerusalem the first time. And so I sat down with that thing, and I think Pastor Robert has alluded to, it became my addiction. I just couldn't put it down some nights, and so I would read 10 pages, and I got through some of the Old Testament, and I finally decided, okay, I'm going to reward myself by starting the New Testament. And January 7th, I finished it, and And I've been reading it ever since. I mean, it's just something I do now. And before, people would invite me to Bible studies, and I'd be like, I don't want to go to Bible study, because it's like joining a book group if you've never read the book, you know, you just can't associate. So now I'm excited about Bible studies, and maybe at some point I'll find the strength to even guide to lead one myself. I really enjoyed the one with Mike and Cheryl when we went through the book of John. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But in these last few years, I like to tell people that before I knew about Jesus, but now I actually know Jesus. Now he's real to me. And God is using me in so many amazing ways. I could be here all day telling you about some of the stories, but I'll end with one story. So a while back, about a month or so ago, I was on Facebook, and I saw a friend of mine from, well, actually grade school. He's from my hometown. His name is Brian. And he said that his daughter had gotten married. And so I'm looking on his Facebook page, and I don't see it saying he was married, and I don't see pictures of his wife. And I thought, wow, I wonder if Brian's single. So for a brief moment, I had this thought of, wow, maybe, I could, meet up with Brian. But then I was like, no, it'd be weird, especially if things didn't work out. And, we have mutual friends, so I decided no. Well, I kept hearing this little voice saying, you need to reach out to Brian, you need to reach out to Brian. So finally I texted him and said, hey, would you want to get together and have lunch or dinner and catch up? And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So we met for dinner one night, and I kind of got all, fluffed up, and we sit down, and he says, well, he said, how are you doing? I know you got divorced in the last year. And I said, yeah. I said, it's been really hard, but some really, really good things have come from it. And I said, but man, dating really sucks, And he's like, yeah. So I said, Brian, how long have you been married? Or how long have you been divorced? And he said, well, actually, Kay, I'm still married. And so there was this very brief moment of us looking at me, and both of us realizing that I thought this was a date. And we laughed like crazy. And so anyhow, I got out my yearbook, and I said, okay, so I guess we really are just here to catch up. So we start going through the yearbook and talking, and it hadn't been very long when he actually said, Kay, actually my marriage is not doing very well, and I don't know if we're going to stay in it. And at that moment I said, Brian, now I know why I'm here. So we spent 5 hours talking, and I told him, I said, obviously I'm not a relationship expert, otherwise I probably wouldn't be divorced, but I have spent a lot of time in the last 2 years contemplating on things that I did wrong in the marriage and what I could have done better. And I said the things that I've really realized is that Eugene and I did not have God in our marriage. We didn't pray together. We didn't, we went to church some, but basically I raised my family the same way I was raised. We didn't worship together. We didn't pray. We didn't talk about God. So him and his wife Lisa were both Catholic, and they had quit going to the Catholic Church also. So we spent 5 hours with me talking to him about how important it was for him to get back to a church, to find some friends that had a church that they loved and that they could get to. And I told him about the man who served me papers told me about this marriage retreat called Retrovai that I really thought that Eugene and I would go to and live happily ever after, but obviously we didn't. But now I know that man told me about it so that I could tell other people. So I told Brian about it, and we talked about, I told him, I said, God did not have me reach out to your wife and go to lunch or dinner with her. I think he reached out to me to reach out to you because you need to be the one to make the change and start the chain of making things better in your marriage. So anyhow, he went home, and I'm happy to say that I talked to him last week, and him and Lisa are doing really well, and they're actually going to go to the retreat, the Christian retreat, and they're looking for a church. And I know that wouldn't have happened if I was married. I know that God would not have used me in those ways if I was still married. And so I feel that God is, this is one of the places where I see God working, is in me also. He's using me in so many ways, and it's totally amazing. So I just, to this day, I continue to see God in so many places, but this church has literally been the thing that got me to where I am in my faith right now. And I am so grateful to have all of you. And I hope that you realize what you have here. Because, I talk to a lot of people who say that they go to church and they don't leave there feeling full of love of God, and I think most of us do here. We're very blessed, and so that's kind of my story. I will ask that all of you still pray for Eugene and my family, my kids, because we need God in our lives, and it's a pretty cool club to join once you actually get to know Jesus personally, and you realize why he suffered and why he died for us. And so I'm just grateful that God put me in this place, that he put me in this very church with all of you. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay, for that. That was awesome. Shall you stand and sing with me? We're going to sing Blessed Be the Tie That Binds. We'll do all 4 verses there, and then we'll do our closing hymn, We Are the Church.
Christian love,
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.